Hello and welcome to Quarantine Class. My name's Wade Bradford and I'm in my closet right now because the rest of the house is sort of, they don't want to listen to me ramble about this stuff. So I had to abandon my family and enter this little closet here to talk with you. Now, so Denotation Connotation. When we're looking at this story, My Life with the Wave, many people just jump into the land of symbolism and they say, oh, the wave is a girlfriend. The wave is a human woman that he's calling a wave. But I think the story is much more intriguing and delightful and follows the form of magic realism if we take the words literally, if we look at the denotation. This story is about a man who's seemingly on vacation and he meets an actual wave upon the sea that washes ashore and clings onto him and wants to travel with him. And so he decides, because he doesn't want to embarrass the wave in front of the other waves, so he decides that he's going to take this wave with him, probably against his better judgment, and he puts the wave on the train. And on the train, he knows that waves are probably not allowed on the train, so on the train he decides to hide the wave in the water faucets. And of course some of the passengers do get thirsty, and then he has to kind of shoo them away. One of the passengers pours some of the water, drinks some of the wave, is like, ew, it's salty. It's like, what's going on here? Are you poisoning this? So then he's sent to jail for over a year, and when he gets back, he finds out that the wave has moved into his apartment. What follows from that is something that many people see as a relationship story, because there are ups and downs, kind of like a wave, and sometimes he seems like he's madly in love with this wave, and sometimes he seems like he is overwhelmed or being smothered by this wave. This wave sometimes treats him very kindly, very passionately sometimes, and sometimes this wave is lashing out and striking him, or laughing at him and being cruel. There's also a scene where the narrator brings fish to his apartment for the wave, and he's very jealous of the fish because they get to swim around in the wave, and she delights in the fish, kind of like they're her pets. So then if you've read the story, and if you haven't, you can stop now, because I am giving you a spoiler alert, right? I'm going with the idea that you've read the story before. So if you haven't read the story and you don't want to listen to the end, then stop this now. Okay, everybody stopped it? That's going to stop it? All right, we're good. We've all read the ending. So at the end, he finally leaves the situation because it becomes kind of an abusive situation, and he returns in the winter a month later, and the wave is frozen. So he takes the frozen wave, puts it in a sack, and carries it over to a bartender's place, and the bartender takes it and chops up the wave into ice, and the last line is the wave being deposited into a container to keep the bottles chilled. So, if we look at the connotation of this story, there are a lot of similarities between this wave and this human living together, and dysfunctional, sometimes codependent relationships. So the question is this a story that is just meant to be taken symbolically, or is it meant to be taken at face value? Are we supposed to imagine an actual wave somehow existing in the apartment? And I think the answer is yes, that we are meant to look at this in a delightfully surrealistic way. As I've mentioned before, magic realism is a genre that combines the magical and the mundane. That's what we have going on here. We have just everyday life going on, but then we have this impossible situation, a wave that is taking up space in his apartment. Here's the reason why I don't think it's meant to be taken directly as symbolic. There's a couple reasons. One, he does talk about an old girlfriend that he goes and meets. And that old girlfriend isn't a tree. It's not a tornado. It's not a beehive. not a fourth thing that I can't think of right now. That the ex-girlfriend is just a female human. So there's that aspect. The other thing is that I get all of the connections. You can see some things as symbolic in the story. You can see like, oh, it's a tumultuous relationship with a female human, and that and when she has the fish, those are like her pet Pomeranian dogs that she loves and he doesn't like, and that when she's almost drowning him, that just means that she's overwhelming his personal life, so he's not getting out enough. So there's a lot of parallels you can make. But what about that train sequence that I summarized? If she is meant to be seen as a human character, why does he put her in the drinking fountain? What could that symbolize? Now, maybe it can symbolize something. Maybe he is stowing her on the train without a ticket or something like that. But it seems like since he goes to jail for attempting to poison people, and people are drinking from the wave and finding her, salty, it seems that we are meant to take this wave at face value, knowing that there are going to be a lot of parallels between human romantic relationships, but this is not exactly one of those relationships. This is about a guy and a wave. Speaking of living with destructive creatures, hey Lizzie, what are you doing? You see yourself? There you are, Lizzie. This is one of my dogs, Lizzie. She's a little bit like living with a wave. Like, though, not exactly, the same. And speaking of things that are alike or similar, so some people might say, oh, well, again, going back to symbolism, they might say, my life with the wave is an allegory of a relationship. And that made me think of what JRR Tolkien says about allegories. Oftentimes, people over the last decades have looked at The Lord of the Rings and have said that, oh, The Lord of the Rings is an allegory of World War II. And Tolkien did not like that claim. Here is a quote about what he says regarding allegory. I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, and always have done so since I grew old and wary enough to detect its presence. I much prefer history, true or feigned, with its varied applicability to the thought and experience of readers. I think that many confuse applicability with allegory, but the one resides in the freedom of the reader, and the other in the proposed domination of the author. So I like that a lot, the idea of applicability, that many stories have this similarity. So we could say, oh, yes, this is applicable, right? We can see how there are similarities between the relationship of these characters, but it doesn't have to be a direct allegory of some other situation or some other history. So that's my discussion about Octavio Paz's My Life with the Wave. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you are all staying cozy and warm, watching this from the comfort of your home. And that's it. I'll be back with more pseudo-intellectual discussions very soon.